Welcome to Buckets! Free at last! Thank you! We're free! Free! Damian Lillard has been traded. This is your Damian Lillard trade emergency episode. On today's show, we'll break down everything that you need to know about the Damian Lillard trade. We'll talk about the basketball side of it, and we'll give you betting insights, including some best bets that are, well, going to be pretty interesting. We're going to talk about things one way, and we're going to bet them another, and it's going to be fascinating to do that with me, NBA futures analyst Brandon Anderson. Want to let you know, today's show is brought to you by the king of sportsbooks, BetMGM. Make sure to go to BetMGM for all your betting needs. Make sure to download the Action Network app. You can track your picks. You can get my content on the Damian Lillard trade, this episode of the podcast, as well as all of our stuff. I was on Green Dot Daily today. I've been running around with my head cut off pretty much since the trade went through this afternoon. We will break it all down in detail. You can also, by the way, go to youtube.com and check out the Action Network YouTube page, and you can find a video version of this show and all of our other ones if you want to make sure to catch shows like Green Dot Daily. And we have other NBA specific shows we're going to be announcing as we get closer to the season. Don't miss out. Go to the Action Network YouTube page and subscribe right now. Okay, Brandon, this morning I got up and I woke up to a bunch of texts, which are, it's happening today. And I was like, oh, and I was like, who is it? And they were like, probably Miami. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. And like, I had no reason not to think that. It was not Miami. It was, in fact, the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard are teammates for the first time in their careers. Obviously, the absolute best teammates that either one of them have had in their career. The deal sees Damian Lillard go to the Milwaukee Bucks. The Portland Trail Blazers receive Jrue Holiday, DeAndre Ayton from the Suns, Toumani Camara, Milwaukee's first-round pick in 2029, unprotected, and Milwaukee swap rights in 2028 and 2030. The Suns receive Yusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen from the Bucks, Nasir Little, sneaky pickup there, from the Blazers, as well as Keon Johnson, another sneaky pickup there for the Suns. We'll break it all down. We're going to do this basketball first, and then we'll break down the betting side. And the reason I say that is some content out there that work in our space are going to be like, love this team, got to bet him now to win the... You wait, the number is what matters here. You got to be smart about how you approach these things. We're going to do that for you right here. Let's start though with the Milwaukee Bucks, Brandon. Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo seems like a pretty good pair. I don't know about you, but I feel like that's a pretty good one too.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty good 1-2 punch to start out on a team, right? Like, seems like where to want to go. You get Giannis, you get Dame. We know the one big glaring spot in Giannis's game is that we need somebody to go, in a very important crunch time at the end of a game, get a few shots up, make some shots. Hey, who's pretty good at that? Damian Lillard, the guy who's literally, his nickname is named after his ability to do the thing in Dame time. Like, that's been the one blind spot that this team has had. It's not Jrue Holiday's game. It's never been Jrue Holiday's game. It wasn't supposed to be. It was supposed to be Chris Middleton's role. It still will be at times, but that was always this is the best we can do solution for it. Now you got Dame. So Dame and Giannis, you still have Brook Lopez, second in Defensive Player of the Year rating a year ago. Obviously, Giannis won the award. So there still is a bunch of defense. There's no Jrue Holiday, so I have some questions about what this means defensively. I think, to me, my big takeaway is I think we have a slightly higher ceiling, but I also think we have a significantly lower floor. At least in the regular season, that's the takeaway. In the playoffs, when you get to the Eastern Conference Finals, you get to the finals, that's what the move is for. That's when we have seen time and again, I love Jrue Holiday. I know you love Jrue Holiday. Like, every basketball nerd adores Jrue Holiday. He's not the guy that you want with the ball in the hands in the conference finals or finals when you got to make a shot. He's just not. That's not his game. It's not what he's supposed to be. Dame is the guy you want to do that. So I think that's the part where the ceiling gets raised, is having that guard with the ball in his hands doing the thing at the biggest stage. That's what Miami wanted and did not get here. It's what the Milwaukee Bucks got. And frankly, you and I both were pretty down on the long-term outlook for this team. This felt to me a lot like the late stages of early Cleveland LeBron, where it was like, well, we did the moves and our roster's old and there's nothing left. And yeah, you're pretty much going to leave. I think they kind of had to do this. It's a high cost. They traded all the picks for Jrue Holiday already. Got a championship, so I'm not saying they didn't get that, but they traded all the picks, now added 3 more picks, and they're starting shooting guard from a roster that has no depth on it. But they got Dame, and they kind of had to go all in. Hopefully this means they get the Giannis signature on the extension too. And you got to feel good. If you're a Bucks fan, you got to feel pretty good today, right?
Yeah, I think there's like multiple levels to this, right? There's what does the team look like next year, which is awesome. What does their chances of winning the championship look like? Better. And then it's also, what are the chances that you're going to keep Giannis Antetokounmpo? And those went way up. Like Giannis goes on a media tour and basically says like, look, I want to win championships. And whether it's here or somewhere else, that's what I want to do. And there was a marked shift in how we talked about things. And a lot of this is when stars start talking in those kind of terms, it almost becomes a self-defeating prophecy, because the minute the guys might leave, other guys don't want to play there, because you're like, I don't want to get stuck. Like, I don't want to get stuck there if he departs. Like, I don't want to be the one holding the bag. And so they make this move, effectively gambling on 2 things. One, that this will work out and convince Giannis to stay. And that 2, that in doing this, they're able to change kind of that dynamic and shift it around. And that Dame will want to play with Giannis, since there had been so much noise from Dame's camp that he was gonna set a trash can on fire and he was gonna graffiti inside the bathrooms and all this nonsense that no one ever believed. And so now and it's worked out. Like, Dame's already like tweeting about the Bucks. Like, it's very clear. And like Chris Haynes is talking about how those 2 wanted to play together. So it really is kind of a thing where it's like, yeah, he probably would have preferred Miami, but he's not going to complain about playing with Giannis. He's totally fine with that. And it's surprise of all surprises, they make it work. You talked about the floor. I think that's interesting. So one of the things I've kind of said on Twitter is I was like, look, this team's old and thin. And that's true.
Yep.
When they have all their guys, this is going to be one of those where the net rating, we're like, the Dame, Giannis, Brook lineups are plus 25 or whatever it is. Like, they're going to wreck teams by the end of the year once they work out the kinks. Like, they got very little time to figure it out before training camp. It's going to take a while, but once they do, they're going to destroy teams in those lineups where Giannis, Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez, and Dame are on the floor together. Those lineups will cook. But in games where Chris Middleton's got a knee injury, and so now Jay Crowder's starting, or Marjon Beauchamp is starting, those games where Giannis has got knee soreness and needs to sit out, and it's Bobby Portis. The thing here, I will say, is like, some of this gets raised. Like, when Giannis sits, would you rather have Jrue or Dame? You'd rather have Dame. Like, you just rather have Dame. And that's not a slight on Jrue. That's just, you'd rather have Dame. Because Dame can go for 40 one night when Giannis is out, and you win that. And if nothing else, it's easier. Like, it really is. You don't have to like scrape and claw and really like try and buckle down defensively to scrape out a win. You can win these games. But look, when Brook Lopez is out, Robin Lopez is probably going to be the backup center, and that's a good replacement. Like, Rolo's still really good, but he's not Brook. And especially, I think once you start to see multiple, that's where we start to have concerns. If 35-year-old Brook Lopez misses a game at the same time that 34-year-old Chris Middleton misses a game, and Dame's 34, by the way, too, when a combination of the 3 old players in the starting lineup miss time, or 2 of them with Giannis, now all of a sudden, like, we see a floor drop. But, like, look, the defense is going to be worse. It's probably not going to be as elite as it has been, because you had Jrue Holiday and Brook Lopez and Giannis. Those are 3 pillars that are honestly top 5 defenders, top 10 defenders in the NBA. But the offensive floor is just so much higher, and Dame's presence will make it easier on Giannis. All those possessions, when teams are selling out on Giannis inside, it's a lot harder to do when Damian Lillard's on the floor. Because even if you don't send help from Dame's guy may have to rotate if they get the ball moving. when they face teams where Giannis has trouble because they bring layers of physicality, Dame can rise up and fire from distance. Finding teams that can match both Giannis's physicality and Dame's scoring acumen, there are like 3 of them in the NBA. And so,
Yeah.
like their capacity, I think, is really high. This team, I have upgraded them 5 wins. They have gone from a 48 win team to a 53 win team in my projections. I upgraded them 2 points, which was at like I went up on Dame and then I went back on Jrue because Jrue was really good this year, right? And so like that's the process that I took with this and then like Grayson Allen's like a quarter of a point. And that's like honestly pretty nice to Grayson in regular season terms. But I've upgraded them from 48 to 53. My Bucks under bet, which was one of the first bets that I put in and was very strong on that coming into the year, it's dead. I think they're winning 50. I don't know. Like it would take catastrophic luck, which is entirely possible, but unlikely for the Bucks not to win 50 games. Like
what was the number that you played? 49.5?
I played 40. I played 51.5.
Okay.
So I might be okay. The question though is how to bet this team. Are we ready to go there yet, or do you want to talk some more about the basketball side?
Just a little bit. I want to respond to I think are higher on this team regular season than I am. I do not think this raises them by 5 wins this year. I don't have a win total yet. I'm going to have to come back to that. So we'll get to it on the win totals pod when we get there. But I was going to ask pretty specifically, are we sure that clearly upgrade on offense, clearly downgrade on defense? The question is how much? How much of which side? So last year, Milwaukee finished 4th in defensive rating, 12th in offensive rating. That's where they're at. The season before, they were 3rd in offensive rating, 14th in defensive rating. So what happened? Well, the 14th in defense that year was no Brook Lopez pretty much the whole season. The bad offense last year, 12th, mediocre offense. Chris was basically out all season. So the question is, if they drop from like 4th, if they basically flip back to what they were before and go back toward middle of the pack, like fringe top 10 defense, but now you are number 3 in offense, that'd be my guess where I'm going to end up with them. Because like, frankly, if I remember right, Damian Lillard with whatever guys you put around him in Portland for years has basically been a top 3 offense, just unto himself with other good guys around him. But, Giannis, Chris, we're going to have plenty of help there. So if we flip from a fringe top 10 offense and an elite defense to a fringe top 10 defense and an elite offense, usually that's going to be a slightly to your advantage setup in the NBA, but I don't think it's 5 wins to your advantage. And I think too, like, I'm not even positive that I'm just thinking this through out loud. We're emergency reacting. So I reserve the right to rescind this take. I'm not positive that this actually increases their playoff chances either. When the Milwaukee Bucks won a championship, which they did it with defense. They did it with just enough offense and just enough shots. But the only reason they even had a chance to hit just enough shots is because they had outrageous defensive numbers. That's gone. It's not happening anymore. It's not going to be close to that with no Jrue Holiday there. They don't have a point of attack defender anymore on the team. They got Dame and Jay Crowder, and we don't have, by the way, we don't have a backup point guard on the team. We didn't before, but we certainly don't now.
Like Washington slander, sir.
Yeah, well, I stand by that. I don't reserve the right to rescind that one. I think the backup point guard is probably Malik Beasley right now, or Pat Connaughton. Like, that's basically our options. Maybe it's Andre Jackson, my guy at rookie. I don't think it's going to be him. It just, I don't know.
I think you're putting too much of the defensive acumen on Jrue, who was good last year, but wasn't the level of impact defender that you're making him out to be. He honestly started to slide a little bit, and you're underrating how pivotal it is just to have Giannis and Brook. Like, you still have arguably the best rim protector. You're the best drop defender in the league. I think it's an interesting question in terms of the playoff stuff, right? Because I've criticized for years the combination of Dame, who needs to play more versatile schemes, and Nurkic, who can only play drop, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm trying to balance this of, well, you're still gonna have to play drop. Brook can honestly, he's gotten way better at switching and playing higher. And that's kind of like the difference here is that like when Nurk plays drop, it's Nurk's gonna stand under the rim and put his hands up and try and honestly murder you and put you in the hospital with physicality. Brook's just like a really like high acumen defender. He's just really smart. So he can play high, he can play mid drop, he can play low drop. Like Brook Lopez is such an improvement over Yusuf Nurkic. I can't even conceptualize how to describe that. I get what you're saying about the perimeter stuff, where you're like point of attack is still going to be a problem, and you're right. But that's compensated so incredibly much by the number one player last season in offensive EPM. Number one. A 3-level scorer that can shoot.
He was really good.
Yeah, a 3-level scorer that can shoot from 35 feet. One of and a passer who has seen almost everything. Now, look, 2 at the level is still going to give Dame problems. I don't think this is a juggernaut. Like I've got him 53. I still have the Celtics considerably ahead of them. I have the Celtics and we'll talk about that. But I do think that when you're talking about like when we get into these ranges of how you like to approach talking about these teams, I think this is a top 5 team on both ends of the floor still. And a lot of that is based off of if they were 13th last year offensively, we need to consider the context of Chris Middleton missing effectively until February.
Oh, absolutely.
And made sure he was completely right.
Yeah, he basically, and even when he played, he was bad. He was not healthy. So yeah, I'll give you top 5 on offense with Dame. I push back on the defense. I don't think they're necessarily there now. I think it's a pretty big swing.
Okay, well, if you're listening to this and you think that Brandon's compelling about the defense being not that quite that good, you've kind of got an approach to take. If you think that I'm right about being really good, guess what? You have the same approach, because let's talk about the numbers, because the market completely lost its mind. All right, so I upgraded them 5. Woohoo! Hey, look how positive I am. Yeah, their win total is 55.5 now. 55.5 with a rookie coach and no depth.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to bet it again, Brandon. I don't want to. I don't want to bet the under on the Bucks. I think this team's going to be great. I think Giannis and Dame are going to be absolutely sensational. The league wants the guys to play more, and they probably will. This is Dame's like first real chance at a championship. But God, 55.5 screams play the under on a completely new roster construction. Yes, Chris and Brook and Jrue and Giannis, know how to play together with Pat Connaughton. But everybody else is new with a rookie head coach. How do I not play the under here at 55.5?
You have to play the under. You told me that number just before we hit record, and like my jaw dropped. I was like, "What? That's the number now?" I definitely see the case and probably think that this team gets better for the postseason for all the Dame reasons. I'm not sure that I think that they really improved in the regular season. Like if the defense thing, you know me, you know how I do the win totals. Defense is so important to me. Mm-hmm. And we know that Coach Bud and what this defense was gave this team, and Giannis, that 3 gave them such a high floor in the past. Now, if the defense is not what it was at some level and Bud is gone, maybe Giannis plus Dame is such a high floor and it's overthinking it, and that's that. That's possible. 55.5 is a really high number. You listen to our episode that will drop probably a day after this episode on how to bet win totals, where we will not have covered this specific case, but win totals 50 and higher, go under. That's the trend that you've got. And 55.5 is a lot higher than a 50. It's a very high win total. Like we had, how many teams hit 55.5 last year? The Bucks won 58. So maybe that's the argument. It's like the Bucks, the team that won 58, but a lot of the underlying metrics said, like at Basketball Reference, they won 58. They were expected to win 50. So again, we know how the win totals work with all that stuff. It doesn't necessarily fix itself. But this team played like a 50-ish win team plus healthier Chris factored in. But I'm not sure we just get to factor in all the health either. Dame is old and has had some health issues in recent years. Older. I'm 40. He's young, whatever. Chris has all the injury factors. Giannis quietly misses 15, 20 games a year, every year, and has an injury right now that he didn't play the World Cup with. So we're probably going to start the season slow because we're going to be adjusting to a totally new defense and partnership and all that. Brook Lopez is a older big man, and Rolo. That's it for the big men. That, like, everyone on this team screams 60-game player. All the important guys. Like, we're gonna miss a lot of games from these guys. I don't want there to be. I want to just see them all be together and be the amazing, like, Megatron and crush everyone. And we'll get some of those games. You're right about the net rating. Like, we're going to see the on-court rating with these three guys is going to be absurd numbers for some of these. It's going to be great. But, yeah, those things are part of it. I think under 55.5, I have not readjusted my numbers, but it's hard for me to imagine that's not going to be like a top 3 to 5 win total play for me. I don't know how you... Certainly, I cannot tell you to bet the over. We will not be telling you to bet the over 55.5. It is an under or pass. I agree with you. I don't think this is the favorite to be the 1 seed in the regular season, but that's a more of a niche market. How about the playoffs? Is this the East favorite? Is this the title favorite?
Yes. I mean, immediately moved in that direction. So the Bucks jump at BetMGM to plus 400 to win the title, plus 175 to win the Eastern Conference.
Oof. What can you give you? Do we have the numbers from before? Do we have a before and after?
Yeah. So the movement looks like it was substantial. There were 800s in the market for title, and they jumped to 400.
Okay.
So we look at those kind of numbers as far as like how this has gone and what direction it's moved. The Celtics, as a kind of consequence of this, who we'll talk about, they were plus 470 in the market in some places, plus 450 I saw at one spot, and are now plus 500. So as a consequence of this, the Celtics odds directly go down, which I will talk about in a second. And then we'll talk about the other markets that moved. So let's kind of like talk here. I don't mind if you want to bet the Bucks to win the title. They have Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo. That seems good. But there is no way I can tell you to bet it now. Do Correct. We remember that? Like, let's go back to the trade deadline. The Suns trade for Kevin Durant, and they instantly jump to favorite status. KD misses some time, and the Suns do like, okay. And then like they slide back and you get a better number. I talk pretty routinely about how for title bets, you can still get really good value before the NBA playoffs, and you get 6 months of information. Like, we're still talking about like long numbers here. The Bucks will either be a buy low spot then because they will have underperformed in the regular season or had guys missing, and we'll be like, yeah, but and we'll tell you why to bet it then. Or we'll know this team is awesome. They're the best team in basketball. They look absolutely dominant. And this number is here. But part of this is also Brandon and I we're in step on the Celtics. No way that can go wrong. That there is a very good possibility the Bucks aren't even the 1 seed. And therefore they won't have home court. And therefore it is almost impossible. Like, it would take it being like if the Cavaliers got the 1 seed because they had an outrageous regular season, the Bucks would still be the Eastern Conference favorite. But if the Celtics or if the Sixers got a trade upgrade for James Harden, if they figured out something magical and pulled it out, there would be then like that there would be like a different kind of structure there. What I'm trying to say is, I don't think that you should bet Eastern Conference title futures right now, period. But you in particular should not be betting the Milwaukee Bucks because this is a market overreaction in light of the trade based on the hype.
Yeah, we're in lockstep on that. That's precisely my reaction. So I don't have too much to add to it. I went immediately to the Suns Nuggets thing last year at the deadline, just like you did. And I remember as soon as that happened, we went in the Slack, me, you, and Joe Delera, and what are we going to write about? And all three of us were like, Nuggets title odds, Nuggets to come out. Like, that was the reaction. So I immediately went to, okay, Celtics, here we go. This is the team that I'm in on. And like the number barely even moved, which I think is telling. We don't have the numbers right now, but if you could go through and like add up all the implied percentages of the East teams to come out of the East, pretty much what happened is like, there's juice in here. This is how betting works. So before the title or before this trade today, I'm going to guess all those numbers added up to like 112% or something. Like that's the juice that was in. Effectively, we didn't lower anyone's odds that much worth noticing and just like doubled the Bucks odds. So now there's like 120% chance of all the teams in the East coming out of the East. And like that alone it should be an immediate red flag that this is not a bettable market right now. To put it a different way, you said for the Bucks title odds, 800 before, that's plus 800 is about an 11% implied, plus 400 where they're at right now is a 20% implied. We're literally reacting to this trade in the market that we just doubled Milwaukee's title odds. I can't get there. I cannot get there on we doubled the odds. Are they better? Yeah, I think so. I think any one of us would think, yes, the title odds are better. But did they jump from 11% to 20%? I can't get there. And I didn't like the 11% before either. So I don't even know if that was the fair number to start with, let alone jumping to 20% odds now. So I'm with you. I'm not going to tell you that the Bucks can't win the title. I don't think that. I'm not going to tell you don't bet the Bucks to win the title. I don't think that either. I'm absolutely going to tell you do not do it right now. You are not getting the right value. It's September. We have a long ways to go. The Bucks might start out 1-4 the first 2 weeks, and you immediately get a better number. There's so many different reasons you can wait and get a better number here. So, yeah, you can't bet this right now.
Giannis's MVP odds jumped.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up too. What's the number?
So, plus 550 bet MGM. Shorter at some places in the market.
Do you have the before on that one? Was that like a plus 700 range?
Yeah, that's where it was at.
So do you think that Giannis has a better or worse chance of winning MVP today than he did yesterday?
Worse.
But the odds got shorter.
That's right.
which is precisely what we're saying. I'm not sure if I agree. Make the case, and then I'll respond. Why do you think the odds of him winning are worse today?
Expectations are the name of the game here.
Yeah.
When Giannis won in 2019, they were the young up-and-coming squad, and it was like, oh, they might be good this year, and then they were great. They were immediately like a title contender, made the conference finals, should have beaten the Raptors. I hate you, Fred VanVleet. Then 2020, right, he comes back, and he's even better. And the Bucks are even better. And so they beat expectations again. Nikola Jokic, 2021, it was like, oh yeah, like the Nuggets are good. Like Jokic is good. Oh, like Jokic is like one of the best players in the league. The performance versus market really does matter. We talked about this in almost all of the episodes we did on how to bet these awards. 55.5 is the win total. Like, what are we talking about here? If Giannis puts, like, is he going to put up better scoring than he did last year with Dame taking the kind of usage that he will? No. Like, he'll be a better defender. He might be a more impactful player, which I think will probably, like, that might get tricky, right? Like, there might be a point in the season when I'm like, look, he's number one in EPM for a team that's going to win 60 games. But, like, that's what we're talking about here, is he's going to have to absolutely dominate in all of the other areas without having the ball as much, have his best shooting season that he's had at least since 2021. And then on top of it, they're going to have to win. I think realistically, you got to win 60 games. I'm not like, I would just take the all over if you think that Giannis can win MVP. You should just take the all over on the Bucks at 60 wins, which I don't think you should do that. But like, that to me is a better play given what we're kind of talking about in regards to these mechanisms. And even then, like, think about it, Brandon, they're plus 170 to win 60 plus games at a book.
That's what I was going to say is that may be the more likely outcome, but you're not going to get odds on it anymore. Plus 170 or 60 is insane to win 60 games.
That's crazy. So this is absolutely no way for me. The other thing is just there will be a section of voters that are just going to be like, yeah, no, Giannis is awesome. He's the best player in the sport. Like, they may come around to that again if Jokic has a down year. But they'll still be like, but he's got Dame.
Yeah.
Like, he's got Dame. It's not the same as when Steph had Curry, or when Steph had KD and KD had Steph. But I think there's a similar effect. I think it's hard to gain traction when, if you say, like, if you ask who's the best player on the Bucks, everyone's going to say Giannis. There's no question. Giannis is the best player on the Bucks. But, like, having another top 5 guy or top 10 guy is going to make that a lot harder. I do not see a scenario of Giannis being rewarded with MVP.
Yeah, I don't think I like MVP. We talked about on the MVP podcasts plural, a couple 2.5 hours for you, so you can catch all the extra details there already on the feed at Buckets. But yeah, it's a fine, tricky dance because you get the better teammate, you have a better team, you win more games, and we know winning more games historically is helpful for winning MVP, unless you're Joel Embiid or Russell Westbrook. That doesn't matter. But otherwise, winning games, great. But winning games, we can give credit to the other guys now. Like, we can give credit to Dame. We might give credit to Adrian Griffin a little bit. Maybe they do some new coaching things and schemes and whatever. Like, I don't know who's going to get credit. We might give some credit to Brook Lopez. Maybe he actually wins Defensive Player of the Year or is right there again. Like, there's credit to a Chris Middleton renaissance. Like, there's a lot of other reasons that we can give credit to. In a weird way, why I was high for many years as Giannis as the default MVP choice is because we couldn't do that. It had to be him. He was the reason Milwaukee was the juggernaut. It was very clearly that was it. That was the reason. And now we don't really have that anymore. Like, if you think back to, LeBron with the Heat, won MVP twice when he had Dwayne Wade. And by the end of that, Dwayne Wade wasn't quite Dwayne Wade anymore. But LeBron is LeBron. And LeBron, lapped the field to win the MVP. I think that's the expectation you have to have for Giannis at this point. I think he has to lap the field. And why I'm not willing to just rule it out is what's interesting with Giannis and the style of player he is, it's very possible to me that doing 15% less offensively re-unleashes all the other Giannis stuff that quietly hasn't been as good in the regular season the last few years. Like, you look at the advanced metrics and all the DPMs and DEPMs and all that, they've all dropped. He's not really defending night to night in the regular season like he has, like he can be able to. Maybe he can now. Like, maybe he can be unleashed as weirdly the second banana type player where Dame is the first banana offensively and Giannis can be like the thing we always talk about Anthony Davis being, of like the second guy, if he actually was the thing, to do all the other stuff and the rebounds and the defense and all the scoring and be more efficient because he doesn't have to take 18-foot elbow jumpers and all that kind of stuff now. Like, there's a world where Giannis is scoring drops 3 or 4 points, but his efficiency metrics skyrocket again to where he's been. We've seen that world from him. So I think it's in play. I don't want to bet it, and I definitely don't want to bet it at this short of a number.
What's about Portland? So, with Portland, the rebuild's on, right? They finally get to move on. What's going to make this trade good or not for them is going to be 2 questions. One, can they basically rehabilitate DeAndre Ayton's value? Can they make him, does he, after not being in Phoenix where he didn't want to be, where he felt so betrayed, does he re-engage? Does Ayton come with a fresh attitude of no, I'm a really good player, I can be great, and embrace this opportunity? Because I think having him for Scoot is great. You put him immediately, it's Scoot and Ayton in a 1-5, and I'm okay, that's immediately, I'm this makes sense. You got Shaden and Simons spacing the floor. That's fun. It's fun and it makes sense, and it's a good building block for Scoot to get to start getting reps, right? The second thing is the Jrue Holiday trade. There's Adrian Wojnarowski we're recording this on Wednesday afternoon, late Wednesday afternoon, early evening, East Coast time. Woj has already said that they're active in communications. Drew's going to go somewhere, and what they get for Jrue will determine whether or not this is a better or worse deal than what they would have gotten from Miami. We'll talk about Miami later, but that's going to determine the value of this trade. I do think the first thing, I don't know what we if you want to talk about the basketball side, we can, but for Portland, I don't think that it necessarily changes much of what we expected. Yeah, they're going to be bad. Scoot's going to get a lot of reps. Scoot's going to be awesome. You have been screaming to the mountaintops, and I have been right there with you that bet Scoot Henderson for Rookie of the Year before the Dame trade. My question for you, I think we can talk about the basketball side. Let's do that first.
Yeah.
Do you have stuff you want to talk about on the basketball side, or can we get into Scoot?
I like whatever they get for Jrue Holiday. I already think this is a better offer than any of the other offers they were getting. DeAndre Ayton, who I have dumped on for his entire career, is a quality, good starting center, age 25, who is durable and stays pretty healthy and entering his prime on a fine contract. That's a valuable player. It's better than any asset that Miami was offering. And all 3 picks that they're getting from Milwaukee in 2028, 29, 30 are very valuable right now because Giannis will be older, Dame will be much older. Giannis might not be there anymore at that point, or Dame for that matter. Like, those are 3 very valuable picks. Those 3 picks in Ayton alone make this a good trade. And they get off of Nurkic's salary, which should have cost something. Like, that's part of the trade. And I wouldn't be at all surprised to see them effectively get this haul again for Jrue Holiday in a deal. Like, there's already talk of, well, maybe Miami can just offer all the same stuff for Jrue Holiday. And I don't think that's enough either, frankly. But, like, Jrue and Ayton and 3 really good picks and getting off of Nurkic's salary, I thought this was an outstanding haul for the team. Adding Ayton to Scoot long-term for the team, I like. I don't think I love Simons and Shaedon both long-term, but that's fine. We don't need to worry about that this year. Just quickly, just in case, is there any chance that there's not a Jrue Holiday trade that emerges and they end up keeping him? I don't really mind that next to Scoot and in that lineup as a veteran guy. I think Jrue would accept that role if he needed to. If Jrue stayed, and now you got Scoot, I'm going to say Simons maybe off the bench. So Scoot, Jrue Holiday, Shaedon Sharpe, Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton, Jrue Holiday off the bench, and nothing else if you look at the bench. It is nothing. Is that a possible play-in team? Is there any reason to talk about that team?
No. Like if you get to that spot, you're shutting down Jrue anyway. One thing I got to do, it's going to take some time. I got to go back and look at what is the over-under performance of teams with a rookie point guard playing the majority of starting.
Yeah, it's not great. We know year after year I have loved to bet against the young teams or teams with young handlers. That's like a go-to thing. So there's a chance, especially if Jrue stays on enough that we get a win total and he's staying into the season, then this probably becomes an underplay because I think they like raise the ceiling enough on the win total.
No one in the league expects Jrue Holiday to be there past.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Month of the season. Like in part, this is. Look, you can talk about like, well, they didn't do Dame right because they didn't send him where he wanted. But like in reality, the part of this is just they're gonna want to do the right thing. But like Jrue wants to compete for a title.
For sure.
They sent Dame somewhere where he can win a title. Jrue wants to compete for titles. They'll send Jrue somewhere where he can compete. Even if it's too
mechanics wise in a trade, can Jrue be traded again with other stuff before December 15th, or is that going to be a possible issue?
No, he can be included with other stuff because he's on contract. There shouldn't be a restriction on him.
Okay. So there's really no reason that he should be around then.
Right. So I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay. No more basketball for Portland. Let's talk about the betting angles then.
Yeah. Okay. So the biggest thing I think is anybody who did not bet Scoot Henderson when you told them to, when we did How to Bet Rookie of the Year, that number has plummeted predictably. Yeah. And now Rookie of the Year stands at plus 300 at our partner BetMGM. We talk a lot about this in when we do game betting. You'll hear this from Buckets all year long about how I'm averse to chasing steam. This is a good question of it. Do you feel comfortable chasing steam at this point on Scoot Henderson?
That is the best number on the market right now, the plus 300. It's as close as 200 in some other places. Let me be very clear. I absolutely still think Scoot is going to be Rookie of the Year. Of course, I like this better now than I did before because Dame is officially not on the team anymore. I still want Scoot. I still, if I had to, would take a Scoot plus 300 ticket if I didn't have one. But I don't have to because I can wait and get a better price later. So I think you cannot chase the steam right now. We're now low enough in a world where Chet Holmgren exists and Wembanyama exists. We're going to have a moment, whether it's in a preseason game or early in the year or like a crazy week by Chet Holmgren or a night where Wembanyama blocks 8 shots. Like, the other two players in this race are going to be important and popular enough that the odds now that they're so close, with 3 close together and Scoot's not the value of the 3, there's going to be a night or a week or something where one guy will be the new favorite now, or the buzzy guy, and then the other odds will slip. So yes, theoretically, I would if I could only make one bet, it has to be right now. It can't be before and it can't be after. I still think Scoot's a value at plus 300. But the after exists, I can bet later, and I think I'm going to wait and add to the position later at a better number, not chase the steam now.
If you already bet it, wait for a better number and bet it again. If you haven't bet it, you can wait and get a better number. If you're only going to bet once, bet it now, is what is your advice.
If you're only going to bet it once and don't want to wait or shop around, you can bet it now. But I still think you should wait and bet it at a better number later, because it's good. We're going to have a better chance at it. I don't see a scenario with Wemby and Chet existing where we get like 3 weeks in and it's just like, oh my gosh, yeah, Scoot is the rookie of the year minus 500. Like, we're not going to get there unless like Wemby and Chet both get hurt long term. Otherwise, that's it. Most improved player, we got a bunch of candidates maybe on the Blazers. We got DeAndre Ayton. He could be most improved. Jeremy Grant was already in it before. Anthony Simons, he's got shortish odds. Do you like anyone here for most improved?
We did most improved earlier this week because, ironically, we were waiting for the Dame trade. So we did that yesterday. Thanks to everyone involved there. I do. So we talked about, like, you were like, can they be like a play-in tournament team? And the answer I think is no. Is there like, here's the kind of the parlay you have to do with Ayton. It's one, Ayton plays really well when he gets there, like basically not being coached by Monty Williams and not being on a team that he's been frustrated with improves him. And then on cross it, we kind of set the bar ish between like 32 and 35 wins for most improved. Like, you don't have to be good. You don't even have to be 500. You just can't be terrible. And so, like, the question here, though, I want to bet Ayton, but I don't have any reason to think, like, doesn't Portland just reposition by January to full on tank to get another guy? Like, what evidence do I have that Portland is going to try and win 35 versus 30 games this season?
Is Chauncey Billups trying to keep his job? Is that evidence? Because I feel like if they bottom out again, that's probably it for him.
I don't know that he gets that call.
Yeah, I'm not sure he does either, but that's the best I can come up with. Is we want to look good and show that we're a winning franchise, and Scoot's our guy, and the Pistons thing, the Timberwolves end of season thing where they're like, we're winning games, yay, we're gonna move this into next year. Is that a Blazers-y thing?
No, not with where they're at, and because if you have the chance to add another top 5 guy next to Scoot, you do that. Like, that's more valuable for you. They get to be patient now, you know. Yeah. And so is there a world where they win 32 games and DeAndre Ayton absolutely smashes? Yeah, I think so. And like, the numbers are really outrageous on him. Like, it's 100-1, and it kind of makes me want to bet it. I guess, I don't know. Let me put it this way. I'll probably throw like a half a unit on it, but that's not a serious bet I'm going to make in the awards market.
Yeah, it's a pass for me. I don't see it with Ayton or Simons. I don't see, we talked about like the numbers boost you need. We talked about the win boost. It's not impossible. Like, I agree with mostly what you just said. I just don't see enough avenue to need to bet it seriously.
I couldn't believe this. Phoenix got upgraded. Like, the thought process one bookmaker sent out a release, and it was talking about how they added multiple rotation players, and I get it. They do pick up Nurkic to replace Ayton. They get Grayson Allen from the Bucks. They pick up Nasir Little and Keon Johnson from the Blazers. Those last two, I think, are like
kind of like those guys. Yeah, I agree.
Like,
kind of like them.
Those are like Nasir Little one of like Nasir Little, Keita Bates Diop, Jrue Eubanks. One of those guys will be like the hustle athletic machine that you want, and you'll be like, is that a really good season for Phoenix? Like, we'll be talking about one of those guys.
Nas Little is going to be the small ball center, and everyone's going to fall in love with the small ball lineup with Nas. I already have that earmarked, but that's not enough to win the trade because, oh my goodness, did they lose the rest of the trade?
Well, it's weird because it's like, look, Ayton literally like wouldn't try on rebounds in a conference finals, semifinals matchup versus Jokic. And that was really frustrating for Suns fans. A lot of this is, I do think that part of the equation with Ayton was he played so well versus Nikola Jokic 2 years ago when they didn't have Jamal Murray. And they were very much like, I think some of it was like, well, look, he does match it. Like Jokic talked about it. He's like, he's a really tough matchup for me because Jokic isn't prideful. So he's like, yeah, no. The problem is just, this is the issue is Jokic figures everybody out. He figures everybody out after about, you beat him 3 times, the 4th time he's going to kill you. Like, that's just the way that it goes because Jokic is the best player on the planet. And he evolved way past that, right? But, like, even with the effort issues and even with all the things that were frustrating, like, Ayton is objectively a better player than Jusuf Nurkic. Nurkic hasn't played more than 56 games since 2019. Jusuf Nurkic routinely has, like, minor injuries that tend to hold him out for durations of time. Jusuf Nurkic is extremely foul prone when he's not able to bully the matchup. Like, he fouls out in lightning speed versus Jokic. That's not like I would, if I am trying to build a team to go up against Jokic, there's no center I want there. There's no center I want there. Like, Wendell Carter Jr. is the closest I can get to because his specific combination of skills has given Jokic issues. Clint Capella is like second. But like, Ayton is a lot closer to what I want in that matchup than Jusuf Nurkic is, and that's before we get to the regular season problems. His post-ups have never been efficient. He's not a good pick-and-roll partner. Like, this to me is I downgraded the Suns on this move because I think Ayton is still a positive player, especially with the kind of talent that they have around him. I get, like, Grayson Allen's a rotation guy. They have a bunch of different dudes that they can fill into the 5th guy, right? Like, they have a bunch of different guys they can put in the corner, whether it's Eric Gordon or Keita Bates Diop, who shot 40% from 3 last year, or now Grayson Allen. Like, they have a lot of options, which I think is good, but I still think this is a downgrade overall based off of the fact that they just poison the well too much with Ayton.
Yeah, this for me is a significant downgrade. And I think of all the teams we're talking about, this is the clearest one for me. So we talked about Little, we talked about Keon Johnson, I guess a little bit. Like, Keon's a good energy guy. These are good young guys. Like, they go into the mix of Yuta Watanabe and Keita Bates Diop and the other guys that were like, yeah, okay, let's see what we get. And they have like 8 of those dudes now. So like 3 of them probably pan out. Grayson Allen does not move the needle for me in the least bit on this team. And that's not just because he has the most punchable face in the world, which he does. On this team, there's like this hilarious progression of players. And the first one's a bit of a stretch, I know. But if you think of like Kevin Durant and all the stuff that he does well, and then make him like a little smaller and a less Durant. Now we made Devin Booker, and then make Devin Booker like a little bit less. We made Bradley Beal. Then we make Bradley Beal like a little bit more injury prone and a little older and worse. We made Eric Gordon, and then we take Eric Gordon and like make him worse at everything, and we made Grayson Allen. It's the exact same player, the exact same archetype of like shooty hoops guy, and we just keep adding worse and worse versions of all of them. We started with 2 really good ones, and we're like, let's add Beal. That's the same. Let's add Eric Gordon. There's more of that, and now we added Grayson, which I know is not the point of the trade, but like, I don't even think that helps the depth that much to me. Ayton to Nurkic, though, is not a small downgrade. It's a downgrade at everything. Truly, I don't know what I can tell you that Yusuf Nurkic is better at than DeAndre Ayton. Here's the numbers, basically. From last year, DeAndre Ayton was something like an 18-10 guy. Nurkic, 13-9. So we gave up some points. We can make that up on this team. We got worse at rebounding. Not great. We need some rebounds on this team. That was already a problem. Defensively, DeAndre Ayton has played center for a top 7 defense 2 years in a row. Hey, guess who's not been top 7 at defense the last few years? The Portland Trail Blazers. They're like 50th in defense the last 2 years. Jokic has been terrible. So we gave up defense, the thing Phoenix needs more than anything. We give up rebounding and size, the rebounding size at least together. That's the thing they need. DeAndre Ayton plays about 2,000 minutes a year. Nurkic is more like 1,500 or less. We gave up 500 minutes of a good player, the 4th best player on the team. Like, we got to replace that now with one of these other random dudes. That's worse. We gave up durability. Nurkic, you said 2019 was the last good season. Well, guess why? Partly because he's older, but because he had a devastating injury and then has never quite been the same player after. That's not his fault. That's just the reality. DeAndre Ayton is a 25-year-old player entering his prime, 65% true shooting last year versus 58 for Nurkic. And guess what? Would have gone up a bunch this year with all those guys next to him. 1.5 BPM to basically 0 for Nurkic. Like, I don't even know that I grade Nurk as a starting center. He's like on the very low end, 25th best-ish range. Like, with centers, you either have like a super duper star, top 3 to 5 guy, worth all the money, and then there's like a next 10 to 12 of pretty good guys, of which I think Ayton is near the back of that group. And then there's like centers 15 through 40 that are just like, yep, let's try to get a couple of those guys and like have a few options and put them in the mix. And Nurkic is like in the middle or somewhere of that range. And it's a big downgrade. And I hate this for Phoenix. I understand it breaks up the contract. I think it opens the door for other stuff later. I don't know if Nurkic is on the team in the playoffs, but right now, I cannot believe that the win total went up. I loved the under anyway, and I love it even more now. So I'm betting the Suns under right now.
I'm not gonna bet it. I think I agree with you that the number is too high because they upgraded it. Like it's gonna be tough for me to say no, but I think I'm still gonna stay away because of the variance. In Nurk's defense, which this is rare for me, but that's how hard you just went on him. Portland's defense was 4 points better per 100 possessions last season with him on court than off. They went from 118, which was just, I cannot put that into words, to 114, which is not good, but it's also like, all right. And then he was 79th percentile in defensive EPM. So, like, I think there are ways to make it work. I don't necessarily, like, I would be putting Bradley Beal and Yusuf Nurkic in pick and roll every single time. Like, that's what I would be doing if I were a playoff team that had the right combination of players to do so, is I would just put Nurk and Beal in pick and roll every single time and try and space KD as much out to the floor as possible. Another thing will be like, look, there was a lot of discussion was Nurk's attitude in Denver was terrible. He got up and left the bench the game entirely. He left the arena because he was not getting playing time. And that was early in his career. He's made a lot of money since then. But there was a lot of thought in Portland that, like, yeah, he's been really good because Dame's in his ear all the time. And maybe KD and Booker and those guys like really embrace him and bring him in. And maybe Beal, is part of that too. And it could definitely work. And maybe Nurk is he's just older now. And so he's outgrown a lot of that. But it's just at least something worth mentioning. I would definitely lean under. I don't think I'll bet it, but I think I'll definitely lean under. And I think that you should stay away from, like it is with Milwaukee, but more so because we do think that Milwaukee got an upgrade. Like, they deserve an upgrade, just not as much of one as they got. And they were starting from too high a position. The Suns have gotten a similar upgrade, and we don't even agree with the notion of the upgrade. Like, this should be a downgrade. Okay, so let's talk Miami before we get out of here. Rough day for the old Heat culture. I thought it was 70% on Monday. I thought it was 70% Miami. And this morning, if you asked me, I would have been like 85. Like, I really thought it was done. One, that's a credit to Milwaukee, who, as I start to piece things together, it sounds like what happened was last Thursday, while all the Raptor conversations were going on, Milwaukee got involved and planted seeds and said, come back to us if you don't think the Toronto stuff is going to work. It didn't. And I think the last night they kind of snuck in under the radar and got this deal done. And it's a credit to them that they did it so quietly. Like there was some scant mentioning of Milwaukee, but it was not really on the radar. So a very good job by Milwaukee's front office. Miami, on the other hand, is, in my opinion, this is my read on the situation, I wouldn't say that they're innocent victims, but I would say that they were not complicit in the efforts of Dame's representation to poison the well. So Dame's reps did what their job is to do. Is Dame said, I want to play in Miami. That's where I want to go. And so his agents did what you do to do that, which is you tell everybody else, if you trade for my client, he will not show up for training camp. He'll make your life a living hell. I've talked about repeatedly on the show how nobody believes that. No, nobody's ever believed that because that's not the way that Damian Lillard is wired. There was always a risk. What I did hear, I heard this last week and I heard it again over the weekend, that the number one team Miami was worried about was Milwaukee. That I think is very interesting. Miami knew that Milwaukee was going to try and make a play. And so they miss out. And now, quite honestly, local media has started shifting over the weekend to like, it'll be fine if Dame doesn't come. This team's better. Look, they made the finals and they're going to pin themselves to that. And look, we doubted the Heat along the way. We definitely did. I'm not saying we didn't, right? But this is still a team that was 3 minutes from being eliminated in the play-in tournament. They were 3 minutes from being eliminated in the second play-in game for the 8th seed. They were
at home after they lost a home game.
With 3 minutes to go. They pull that out. And then, look, Giannis gets hurt, but they beat the Bucks. That Bucks team was ripe for an upset. I'm really mad we never got a chance to do the 1-8 because of how the timing is with the weekend games, with the play-in. Because you and I both would have been like, Miami plus 2.5.
Yeah.
Like, or at least I would.
We were saying all spring, like, this team is dangerous. You do not want to have to deal with the Heat. They're always going to punch above their weight. Like that's the thing with them.
Now I will say, like, I thought they would punch above their weight but lose.
Agreed. I absolutely did too. I would never have expected them to beat Milwaukee. I came on our podcast after Miami went up 1-0, and I literally said the thing I'm least concerned about all the game ones is anything we saw from Miami. They're fine. It's fine. Milwaukee will roll. I was totally wrong. Yeah. We underestimated Miami while overestimating what the market thought of them. We did both.
Right. So they lose Max Strus and Gabe Vincent, and now the Miami local line is like, oh, now you think these are good players? Like, I thought those guys were good players before. When I looked at the free agency market this summer, knowing that Kyrie Irving was going to go back to Dallas, like, Gabe Vincent was the number one point guard on my list outside of Fred VanVleet, who I thought was going to Houston. It was like Kyrie, Fred VanVleet, Gabe Vincent. Okay. I think Gabe Vincent's good. He's a quality shooter that defends at a high level. Max Strus, he could be bodied, right? You get him in the right matchup and he could be okay defensively. He's not like universally bad. He's just outmatched by anybody with size. Good shooter though. Like, great shooter. Helped them win all these series. Those are key missing pieces. Yes, they have Jovic stepping up, and yes, they drafted Jaime Jaquez, who everybody's super high on, and those guys might absolutely pop. I'm open to that. But I'm just like, Jimmy's 34. Like, Jimmy's 34. There's still a lot of thought they're going to trade Kyle Lowry. How do you, like, does Tyler Hero really put this behind him? All of this? After all of this, Tyler Hero just puts it behind him. Maybe Heat culture is that strong. Maybe this is where Heat culture shows up. The market predictably has reacted to this as we knew that it would, which I think is at least like a little bit interesting. I don't necessarily like the Heat are still minus 190 to win the Southeast Division. I bet the Hawks at roughly this number before at plus 225. So I think there's a little bit of value there. I don't want to go too overboard in betting the Heat. There was movement on their win total like we thought it was. It went from 48.5 in the market to an average of 45.5, which that's in a range that I don't think I want to get involved in. I don't think I have like a very strong position on what I want to do with Miami. I have them at 44 wins right now. So that's not enough for me to really feel like I want to bet this. Because like if Jaquez and Jovic do play well and Josh Richardson does play like he did in Miami, yeah, this team could like maybe the defense gets back together and this team looks like a 48-52 win team again. They still have a great coach and they got Jimmy Butler, who's amazing, and Bam Adebayo. But certainly, like, this is a disaster for Miami, and don't believe anybody that positions it as otherwise. They let those guys walk because they were setting up everything to get a deal done because they thought they had the inside track. And Dame's representation pushed too hard and made it to where Portland, we can argue about which was the better deal. Ultimately, relationships in this league matter, and the well got so poisoned that Portland was willing to do a deal with just about anybody because of how they felt about how they were being backed into a corner to send him to Miami.
Okay, I got a lot to respond to, but I know we got to wrap up. So really quickly,
Right,
number one, we can't argue about who is the better deal. Every asset that the Blazers got from Milwaukee is better than anything that Miami could offer them. Jrue Holiday, better than everything Miami could offer, even though they might actually do that swap, which we need to talk about briefly. DeAndre Ayton, I think, still better than anything Miami could give. The picks, better than anything Miami could give. Better than the young guys. Better than all of it. It's not comparable. They blew the offer out of the water. Miami fans, you are delusional if you think that these offers are comparable or you have the clearly better offer. You don't. Jrue Holiday and DeAndre Ayton are really good NBA players on proven winning rosters. Tyler Hero ain't around for the time you just made the finals. You can't even do that one on me. I don't think it's even remotely comparable. I'm with you on Strus, Vincent, Oladipo. I don't love the guys, but they're minutes. They were spots in the lineup. They lost them and added nothing but Jason Richardson, Thomas Bryant, I guess, and like the Miami never-ending factory of Highsmith and Orlando Robinson, all the guys. Like the Heat will do the thing. The Heat will stick around. I'm worried. You remember a couple years ago, coming off of the other finals run that the Heat did have, which existed, I was all about Miami to miss the playoffs. I got to do it again because I see right now in the East, 5 teams, Boston, Cleveland, Milwaukee, Philly for now, and the Knicks, clearly better than the Heat. That's right, Knicks, clearly better than the Heat. All 5 of those. That means Miami's the 6th seed at best, which is the only spot left that's not in the play-in. They were a play-in team last year. Their roster is worse. I don't know how to make it any clearer than that. They were a play-in team that could have been eliminated there and very closely did, and their roster is worse. And their roster is older with all injury-prone dudes, and their roster just came off a prolonged, grueling playoff run with like Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry, who have infinite mileage on them, and now that carries into the season. I cannot feel good about the Heat, where they're at. I think you have to look at them to miss the playoffs. I don't want the over-under. I push back on your 48-52. I do not see that as a possibility for this team, but I want them to miss the playoffs. I like your Hawks bet. That was the one you had going into it. By the way, Cavs to win the division, I think is a nice angle. I see a plus 360 with the Bucks odds kind of moving up that way. I think that one's still pretty close there. Here's my question. Do I do any of the Heat fades now, or do I have to wait? Because isn't just Miami the most likely team to do the exact same offer they wanted to do and be the team getting Jrue Holiday, who I kind of really like on this roster, kind of maybe somewhat better fitting for who they are in Heat culture and defense and all the things they do? I feel like, to me, my takeaway from this trade, I put this on Twitter earlier, I think the winner of the trade is whoever gets Jrue Holiday. I think the winner is to be determined still. Jrue Holiday is the piece that's going to swing the title race, I think, in a more significant way than anything else. And I think that could still be Miami. So what do you think about the Jrue Holiday market?
Okay, there's a couple things. One, I think I put this out on Twitter that they should offer the same trade for Jrue Holiday. They should just take all the offer them the same kind of stuff. It'd be really funny. I genuinely don't know if I don't know if they're going to pick up the phone. I think Portland not necessarily Joe.
Who's not picking up the phone?
Portland. I think that it's not necessarily Joe Cronin. I think there are people in the Blazers organization that do not want to do a deal with Miami, period, and don't want to help them under any circumstances. Again, I don't necessarily know that Miami was like all that complicit in this. They probably could have done more to probably request to Dame's representation to not go so hard because but that was the only way the deal was going to get done because of what Miami was offering.
They could have offered their stuff. They could have been like, let's be honest with ourselves. We're getting Dame. Here's the actual stuff we can offer. Oh, no. We got to keep back Jovic. We got to keep one of our... They could offer the actual deal. Well,
I will say this. They didn't get the chance to.
Yeah, that's true.
Portland told them, like, they went to them at Summer League. This has already been reported places. And we're like, what do you want? And Portland's like, put together an offer and we'll see if it's enough. Which is what they should have done. They should have just been like, you go do the work and we'll do it. I believe that Portland probably took the Phoenix conditions from a framework that Miami had suggested. I think Miami called Phoenix to be like, hey, what if you sent Aiden and we'll send you Caleb Martin? And I think Portland took that and then incorporated it into other conversations. My understanding is that, and this could be wrong, but this is my understanding right now, is that Miami did not get a final call. They didn't talk to them. That like there wasn't like, hey, this is the offer from Milwaukee. What's your counter offer? That didn't happen. They just took the deal, which that does indicate a level of we choose not to do business with you. Like relationships matter, right? And so what I mean by that is like I don't know if they're willing now to turn around and give them Jrue Holiday. I don't know if they're willing to help them after that. That's like an interesting question to kind of debate. Maybe so. I agree, it'd be a really good fit. Jrue was still 94th percentile in defensive EPM last season. Offensively, he's still a hit or miss. I think you're overestimating him a little bit as much as I love Jrue and think he's one of the best people in the league.
It's a team building thing for me. It's not individually. It's that like he's a guy that is a better than the sum of the parts guy. And especially for a LeBron team, for example, for the team that has the lead handler and that has a Giannis that can do the Giannis stuff at the end of the game too and doesn't need a point guard to do that, then I love the fit there to just come in and do all of the other Jrue Holiday stuff. Like that's why we always want him on the USA team, the Olympic team and all that stuff because of those things. So can I throw out a few Jrue Holiday trade destination ideas?
Yes.
All right. So you're going to hear about Clippers, Lakers. I don't really know what the deal is there, but they're going to be in the mix. I don't have a deal for it. Philly is going to be an option. James Harden, I don't really know. Like, it makes sense. I don't have deals for them. Here's a few interesting ones I came up with. Would Minnesota trade Mike Conley and I assume Jaden McDaniels? All in, put Jrue next to Ant. You got Jrue and Gobert and Cat. What do you think about Minnesota as an option?
What does the deal look like?
I think it probably has to be Jaden McDaniels. That's really the only piece left. And then I assume Conley because you're replacing.
That's absolutely a no for them. That's a no.
For Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota says no.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, can't do it.
All right, Golden State. Would they trade either CP or Clay and presumably Jonathan Kuminga, maybe Moody, some of the young pieces? There's been Jrue Holiday rumors before. Would they bring him in?
They work too hard to get everybody on the same page. Kerr's already talking up Kuminga in preseason talks. They genuinely feel like last year was just Wiseman Poole, and I think that they think that they're going to bounce right back, and they've got Chris Paul, and we'll find out more about why you agree with them. I don't think that they want to disrupt things as close to camp, so no.
Okay, I got two more. Not really a title mover as much, but could you and I strike lightning in a bottle twice? Could we get a Donovan Mitchell second year in a row type thing? How about Indiana? How about Indiana trading like Mathurin, Buddy's contract, something like that? And now we got Halliburton, Jrue Holiday. We're not going to win the title. Doesn't swing the odds, but man, for our overs, we'd love it.
Nope, they don't want that. They're on the right timeline, and they've managed this pretty well. Like Bruce Brown's still pretty young. They don't have like Miles Turner is one of their oldest guys. Jrue doesn't want I don't think you can ask Jrue to play at that pace for the duration of the season. They don't want the money.
Yeah.
That's the biggest factor here is the money. The money is the factor that causes the most problems here. You'd also be asking Portland to take on Buddy Hield's contract. The only way that makes sense is if they flop him again, and that puts a lot of pressure on them to get a deal done in 4 months or losing it.
Yeah.
You can't give Buddy Hield the extension. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
So
I agree. Similarly, I had marked OKC like a giddy package, and maybe you bring in Jrue for the culture, but I think it's not the right timeline. Here's the one I like the best, and I think you've talked about this on Twitter too. I don't know how the money works, but pretty close to straight up. Brandon Ingram, Jrue Holiday, Jrue and CJ and Zion, hopefully, and all the stuff. And Brandon Ingram comes back as the wing, face of the franchise, young guy. Portland's got its star. I kind of like that one a lot. What do you think?
I mean, I love it, but they're not going to do it because they love Brandon Ingram, and the perception outside of you and I is going to be that Brandon Ingram is like 10 times more valuable than Jrue at this point because he's a shooty hooper. Like, there's just going to be this perception. Like,
it's
Brandon's
a bad perception.
Like a franchise cornerstone. Like, I would love it if they moved on from Brandon Ingram because I think that moving him for what you would get would make them better. I think a better option is honestly find a third team. You can't send CJ back to Portland. Find a third team to take CJ, and then you absorb Jrue Holiday for pick compensation. Like, if you sub in, if it's Jrue Holiday, Brandon Ingram, Herb Jones, and or Trey Murphy, Zion, and JV, I think you're cooking. I think you're absolutely cooking. You've got 2+ defenders on the floor at all times, and JV that works fine in drop. That defense was good last year. It would be elite with Jrue. I love the fit. I don't think it works for Ingram. CJ, I can see it working, but I don't think that the Pels are going to make the move for a number of reasons. Plus, Portland the problem is like those talks would just fade out because Portland would have to keep being like, well, give us one of Herb or Trey. And New Orleans would have to be like, no. And Portland would be like, well, how about Dyson Daniels? And Portland would have to be like, no. Like, they can take Jrue, but they can't take Jrue for any of the young guys. And otherwise it doesn't make sense for Portland. Right?
Okay.
I got one.
So
I got a discount.
If Jrue Holiday, and we're not going to do all the teams, but just in general, because I know you're saying that you feel like I'm a little high on Jrue Holiday, which I might be. If he goes to then one of the presumed teams, to Miami, to Philly, to either Los Angeles team, how much does that move the title odds for you to get Jrue Holiday on, presumably without giving up a huge thing? So you're getting a clear upgrade. Jrue Holiday's in. Does that move the needle for you on a title race?
If he goes to the Clippers, it's gonna make me start to quake and start moving back towards maybe I gotta bet him again, which I don't want to do. That to me like makes a move. Philly, no. I don't think you have enough, and you got Embiid's still Embiidness in the playoffs. Miami, I'd have to think really hard about. I think that's a bigger upgrade. That's the one where it's like the exponential growth there is huge. Like if you're able to put Jrue Holiday on the floor with Bam Adebayo, good God, like let alone Jimmy, but like Bam and Jimmy and Jrue, there's just so much toughness there. They would be such a beast to deal with again, and they're already gonna be a pain. I have one that's not a championship contender, so it'd be a little bit screw and Jrue, but it'd be like, hey, you get to make money, and this team is trying to make the playoffs this year.
Is it Orlando?
Markelle Fultz and Gary Harris for Jrue Holiday.
I had that on the list. I had Orlando Young stuff. Like, again, maybe you're right that they're going to want to do right by Jrue and like get him to a contender. Jrue, everybody loves Jrue Holiday. Jrue is a great dude who's had a championship window. I don't think that he would be a dude that would be like, nah, I'm not playing for Orlando. Like, if that's where he ended up, I have every expectation that he would go like be the classic leader. We'd have all the great stories about how he was helping all the young guys. Like, I would love to have him in that role on that team. That defense would be really good. I'd be very excited about that. I kind of put them into my like timeline doesn't really make sense sort of thing. But like you and I know, just because I don't think a timeline makes sense does not mean a trade doesn't happen. Teams do what they do. And if I want to go, I'm going to do this to myself. If I were the Timberwolves a couple years ago and I'm thinking I'm a young team, but I need a culture setter, I need some defense, I need like a guy to come in and lead the team, I don't want Rudy Gobert. I want Jrue Holiday. Like that's the guy that I'm going to be willing to overpay a little bit and fit the wrong timeline and just come in for like 2 years and teach us how to win and lead and do all the stuff. I think that's a real possibility for him. If not, I think he's the kingmaker. Put him in Miami. I'm going to buy your Bam Defensive Player of the Year stock. Put him in the Clippers or the Lakers, I got to look at their title odds. Put him in Philly, oh my gosh, Maxey for most improved, like Jrue and Maxey, I'm in. I love it. I want the most improved. I might even have to bet title odds or something. I think Jrue is the kingmaker in the deal if he goes to the right team.
All right, that's going to do it for this emergency pod of the Damian Lillard trade. We'll be back. You're going to get in your feed tomorrow our How to Bet win totals, which I now have to record an intro talking about how we didn't talk about this trade when we recorded it. My thanks to David Payne for producing this on the fly, as well as our video producers. Appreciate those guys. We'll catch you guys again tomorrow with another episode. Thanks for joining us. Till then, let's get buckets.